Welcome back or welcome to my channel. My name is Taylor and today we're going everything that we know about the life of a showgirl so far, as well as my thoughts, comments, predictions, and everything in between. But before I open the video, remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you love all things music. So this is my first video of this type. Obviously the girls over at Chat and Rack, Ali Sheehan, Nina Shelby, and I'm sure a whole lot of other Swifties have been partaking in these video styles before, where they break down like how we got to a certain time and era in Taylor Swift. And I to a degree do that, but I do that on my TikTok and shorts where I break down every Taylor Swift song. So normally when I do those videos, obviously we hit up Wikipedia first for some background reading, we go to Genius, we draw from personal knowledge as well as just collective online research. But today we are at the beginning of an era, the life of a showgirl. And this one seems like it's going to be my album. I'm tricked out in my orange dress today, my brightest orange. I have my star earrings on because stars seem to be the way we are going. I should put orange makeup on, but someday for the release day I'll probably put it on. But this one definitely seems like it's going to be my era. One, because Max Martin and Shellback. Two, Reputation era photography. And I'm just going to say, some of these track titles are so interconnected to my lore as a human being. I just know that I am going to be heavily invested in what this album is giving. But for today's video, I'm going to go through, first starting off, how did we get here? How did this whole rollout in TS12 come to be, along with us clowning as Swifties? Obviously, if you've been on the ride like I have, you probably already know. You saw me crashing out on TikTok, going through every announcement that I possibly could. There will be timestamps, so if you want to hop over the how did we get here section and into the what do we know now and prediction section, we'll go through that. Then we'll go through everything we learned on the New Heights podcast, as well as the track titles, and sort of diving into my thoughts, comments, and predictions on those. Because if you don't know, I am a college professor, so if you're wanting to look for an actual Professor Taylor, I'm here. I am a professor of business, but I did work in a library for 6 years, so I like to think I know a little bit about what I'm talking about, so we'll see. But let's go ahead and hop into the how did we get here section. 12 was a long time coming, as the Eras Tour say. So if you are new to the Swiftie fandom, haven't been along for the ride, or just like I need to get caught up, you've got a Swiftie partner and stuff like that, you're learning the ins and outs of how this works out, well, you're about to dive into the mind of a very big Swiftie. So will I say that I am a major clowner like the rest of the fandom? I don't know, but do I like to feed into some of the frenzy that goes along with it? Maybe, just because it's kind of fun. So let's throw it all the way back to the Miami Eras Tour, October 18th, 2024. In this one, we see our first hint at a possible TS12 album to come, and that is Taylor posting a video caption, "Back in the office." Of course, she's back on the Eras Tour, back on the international leg, back from the international leg of the Eras Tour. And in the picture, in the video, she is seen walking past the section A12. Did we all clown over this, thinking, okay, she's hinting at TS12? Little did we know that TS12 wasn't going to come for another year, but we as Swifties like to pick up on anything numbers related, and Taylor Swift did say in the New Heights podcast she loves messing with numerology. So this was our first thought and indication that TS12 may be to come, and obviously we learned on the New Heights podcast that she had been working on the life of a showgirl during the international or European leg of the Eras Tour, which had preceded the Miami show. So by this point, the album could have been done. We just didn't know that yet. Then let's fast forward to December 8th, 2024, the last night of the Eras Tour, the last Vancouver show. During this, Taylor is pictured in the end of the Eras Tour exiting out an orange door that had been appearing multiple times over the course of the Eras Tour, and all of us had been clowning, thinking that this could be hinting at her entering a new era. This could be hinting at the possible forgotten or lost karma era. If you don't know anything about that, Nina Shelby has a huge video on that, explain that. But essentially, it is a theory that it's the lost second album to Reputation that kind of got lost after, our last second album before Reputation, I guess, that kind of got lost between 1989 and the events that took place before Reputation with Kanye, Kim, and so on and so forth. Obviously, I think Taylor has relatively debunked this one, although we'll have to wait to see if we ever get the Reputation vault. We don't know, but she walked out this back door instead of descending down to the stage like she usually did, and Taylor did confirm that this did signal her entering a new era like most fans had thought. In terms of why we were clowning so much that orange was so indicative of a new era, well, let's face it, the girl has gone through nearly every color of the rainbow at this point, and she used up like black and white already as well. So orange was one of the only real colors left that she hadn't quite used. And Taylor really didn't have more of a response on New Heights other than saying she just liked the color. Then we have a couple instances of her utilizing the number 12 throughout her Instagram and social media posts. First up, we see this when she's posting about Selena Gomez and Benny Blanco's new album, I Said I Love You First. I do have a reaction to that album, or the deluxe portion of the album. I don't remember. I have a reaction to some form of the album on my channel / ranking all of Selena Gomez's songs, so you can find the link somewhere up here or down in the description box. And in that post, she said, oh my God, with 12 Ds. Now, we as Swifties, to any other person, may just be her really excited, but we clock that. And then when she was posting in May about her repurchasing or buying back her masters, she did write in there the word this with 12 eyes, as well as in this, if you spot at the top of the letter, which should be somewhere on the screen, we have a new TS logo. A lot of us were picking up on the thought that since the re-recording era is technically over, the era that we've been in for many years, what kick-started the Eras Tour idea and process, that this album was indicating that we are moving on to a final brand new era. And the new logo itself was one that we hadn't seen before. And in terms of predictions, this logo is very much so giving Great Gatsby Art Deco, which when we go into the track list, I think The Life of a Showgirl really does indicate that is what's happening. Let's fast forward all the way up to the beginning of this week. Today is August 14th, and everything started this past Monday, August 11th. So on August 11th, Taylor Nation posted on social media 12 pictures. All of these pictures are of Taylor Swift on the Eras Tour in her orange outfits. Now, when she first debuted the orange color palette or the orange outfits, we were all unsure why orange, because it's really the only color that didn't fit any specific era, unless maybe you're thinking of like Summer and Lover. So that was interesting, but all of these 12 pictures featured an orange outfit, with the last one depicting Taylor Swift singing on stage with Sabrina Carpenter, which many fans thought hinted at a possible Sabrina Carpenter collab, which it being the 12th picture ended up being the 12th song on the album track list that we'll talk about in a minute. And it was captured thinking about when she said, "See you next era." Now, I have not seen the Eras Tour book. I didn't buy one. But from what most people have said, that this appears at the end of the Eras Tour book, indicating once again that exit from the eras or re-recording era, moving in to this new Life of a Showgirl era. And everyone pointed out that this was posted at 9:12 a.m., just 12 minutes after New Heights Travis Kelce podcast announced that they were going to have a special guest, which many people had speculated was Taylor Swift. And then, of course, New Heights immediately posted that day that Taylor Swift was going to be the special guest. And later on that night, we got a countdown around, I think it was about a 3-hour countdown or so on and so forth, on Taylor Swift's website, indicating something was going to come at 12:12 a.m. on August 12th. So, and when that countdown officially ended, we got, you should see it on the screen, 3 new products giving us the title The Life of a Showgirl, but nothing else because everything else was hidden behind a green and orange lock. Many people speculate this is because the album cover and the track list had been linked on social media, so she was trying to keep it under lock and keep the suspense in place so that we could wait until the actual podcast reveal. But of course, we all knew the title, so we went into Spiral City trying to figure out what was happening. Luckily, we only had about, 24, 36 hours to wait for new information to come our way. But of course, we all just bought it because we didn't know anything else. I will say I wish I had waited just because there is an alternate cover that I like more than the cover I originally bought, but I may buy that one. We'll see. It's kind of tight on money a little bit right now until the new school year starts. But hey, we all bought it. We crashed the website for a hot second, and then we all waited for about an hour or 2 hours to buy an album that we didn't know the cover of. Then on to August 12th. We all kind of waited in suspense, trying to speculate what was happening. So after the website had gone all wonky crazy, we also saw that on New Heights they had posted a clip of Taylor basically announcing that her new album, The Life of a Showgirl, was going to be discussed and like revealed on the podcast. So we need to fast forward another 24 or so hours to August 13th, which was yesterday, and Taylor Swift appeared on the New Heights podcast. And that's where this portion of the video of how did we get here to TS12 ends, because we're about to dive into all the things she said on New Heights, as well as going over our thoughts, comments, and predictions for the track list. Spoiler alert, track 5 is gonna end me. So let's move into part 2. So let's go over everything that we learned concerning the sound, the vibe, and everything for The Life of a Showgirl from New Heights. I will go in depth into the tracks in the next section. So if that's all you're concerned with, hop on over. So the first thing that we obviously got was the actual cover art, because up to this point, we hadn't seen it. So the first one, The Life of a Showgirl, the standard cover is titled the Sweat and Vanilla Perfume Edition. So obviously we know from the 1989 variants and arrows that she likes to give these deluxe editions titles featuring like colors or lyrics from actual songs in the album, so we can take it as the different deluxe titles are probably hints as to future lyrics to come on. But Sweat and Vanilla Perfume, she said that this album cover was designed to represent what the end of her night looked like at the end of the Eras tour. Her submerged in water, still sort of in glam, but trying to decompress and get clean from the actual show that just took place. And if you can see on the album cover, there are distorted images of her, sort of like jagged glass or jagged mirrors. So this could be representative of a distorted image of what it means to be a showgirl or a pop star, or what fame means to her, because this album, by and large, many people are expecting is going to be about her relationship with fame and what that means, specifically everything that she learned from the Eras tour. The other variants we got are the It's Frightening edition. This one is good. It has her climbing over seats and stuff like that. I can't remember. This is giving something. This is giving something from the early 2000s, an image that I can't recall. So if anyone can get what she's going for here, let me know. This one also has more distorted imagery here in this case. Then we have the It's Rapturous edition. This one is very much so paying homage to those early showgirls of the 1920s, which she like referenced in Clara Bow on the Torture Poets department. If you don't know anything about Clara Bow, she was essentially the original it girl as Hollywood deemed her, and she came to fame during the 1920s sort of talkies era, which essentially her downfall, I think, was the onset of like color television. But there's a lot to go with that. But this one is very much so giving that. It's giving like Flapper Girl. It's giving burlesque. But what's really giving burlesque is this last one, which is my favorite edition. Who would have thought the least colorful edition would be my favorite? And that is the It's Beautiful edition, with her obviously dressed in this very scandalous sort of like attire, like just sort of like silver, kind of a la the dress from the VMAs where she announced Midnights. So yeah, so obviously we can infer that Sweat and Vanilla Perfume, It's Frightening, It's Rapturous, and It's Beautiful are all going to be lyrics off of potential songs. To me, Sweat and Vanilla Perfume sounds like it's going to be off of like a very like upbeat song, whereas I think It's Frightening, It's Rapturous, and It's Beautiful is going to be off the title track, The Life of a Showgirl. That just sounds like either a chorus hook or a bridge. But those are the additions that we ended up getting. So prior to everything that went out, Spotify had released this exclusive playlist and titled "And That's Showbiz Baby." I need to like double check that, but the title should be on the screen. And in it was a set of 22 tracks that Taylor had written with Martin and Shellback. So that's what led many people to believe that this was going to be a Max Martin and Shellback album. If you don't know anything about Max Martin, he's essentially kind of like the pop producer of gods. Like he's worked with Britney Spears. He's worked obviously with Taylor Swift. I think he's worked with Ariana Grande and so on and so forth. If you listen to Eternal Sunshine, Ariana Grande's latest album, he worked on her with that. He is essentially like, if you want great, amazing pop hits from the last couple of decades, he is probably responsible for what is to come. And Max Martin and Shellback had originally started working with Taylor on the Red album, and she referred to them, kind of like Max Martin in particular, as her mentor. So you can see on the screen the different lists of songs that they worked on, but to note a few: We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together, We Are Never... Ready for It, one of the best songs she's ever put out. Come on. 22, and then of course 1989, which I'll get more into the 1989 thoughts in a second. But they've worked on a lot of songs together. A lot of her major pop hits from the 2010s came from Max Martin and Shellback collaborations. And she had noted that it had been a while since they had worked together, because the last album that they had officially worked on was Reputation. And of course, after Reputation, she's primarily seen working with Jack Antonoff and Aaron Dessner. But she said when they came together after these many years of being apart and honing their craft and learning their knowledge, they really wanted to get back down and create like the album that she had been wanting to create for a while. And Max Martin even told her that he had loved the storytelling aspect of folklore and to never lose it. And of course, Taylor said, I don't think I could, even if I tried. So yeah, it is important to note that if this album, like she says, is only Max Martin and Shellback and no other producers, that this is going to be the first album in over a decade that she hasn't worked with Jack Antonoff on. Which I guess to all the Swifties who want to be rude and like tell them I don't want any more Jack songs, I guess this is your album. But yeah, it's just interesting to note that she and Jack are, I guess, stepping apart for a little bit. Of course, Jack is off working with other very famous artists, so that is kind of expected that maybe he has to work on some other stuff. I don't know, maybe he's working on Sabrina's album. So, and of course, she stated that this was it. This was all we were getting. We were getting these 12 tracks. She wanted to create a very concise, tight album where every song could not exist without the other songs. They all worked together to create a story, tell a concept, and this was everything that needed to be. There's no double album, there's no deluxe, there's no side B or B side to anything. Like, this is all we're getting. So in terms of Taylor Swift's album links, if you take out any deluxe or like B-sides or double albums that we've gotten, the last time she released an album this short was when she released her debut album, which was originally 11 tracks, if I remember correctly. So if you actually add back in all the deluxe tracks, this is going to be her shortest album ever released. Which, to be fair, if she wants to come out and this is the album she said she wanted to write that she's hyping up so much, I mean, I'm curious to see what these 12 tracks give, because you know. Essentially, it's going to work as the opposite of TTPD, where TTPD was more of a cathartic, getting her diary, getting her poetry entries out on everything, just like dumping on us. This is what she is going to give, like, very concise, very much so high concept imagery. And basically, like I said, she wanted to dive deep into what life was like off stage. So it's probably going to address likely the media, her personal life during the time. Obviously, during the European leg of the tour, she and Travis had gotten together, so maybe there's going to be songs addressing life like with Travis, as well as the media scrutiny and tension around that. She also said that this one is going to be a more upbeat, happy album, as well as Travis reiterated that, kind of saying every song was a banger, like bangers after bangers. And she said this was because life was more upbeat and happy, and how her albums tend to reflect her moods and feelings and her thoughts and everything that's going on in her personal life at the time. This is going to reflect that. And she refers to the songs as having melodies so infectious that they make you angry. So given she's working with Max Martin, Travis said it was going to be pop and bangers, and the melody's so infectious, I think we can all conclude that this is about to be a pop album. And she also did say the album artwork and inside was done by the same photographers that did Reputation, which she hasn't worked with since then. So to me, this is giving sort of like post-1989, post-Red situation, like kind of vibe that we're going to get. If TTPD was most similar or synonymous with Red and folklore, to me this album is going to be the most synonymous with 1989 and Reputation. I also think this one is, the reason Reputation is very obvious. It's been a given. She's brought up Reputation, the album style and stuff like that. The reason it's giving 1989 with me, outside of the Max Martin Shellback's pop sort of situation, she got a lot of flack with TTPD for it not being an edited down, cohesive enough album concept art, which is similar to some of the critiques she got with Red. Red, we like to repeat how she needed to create a more sonically cohesive album, and how she went in the studio with the intent of creating what eventually became 1989. And she said with this one, she went into the studio with the intent of creating something new, something different, something that was sort of a departure from what she had been creating, particularly with TTPD. So that's why it's giving that. We'll see. But that is the end of kind of going over things that we discussed on New Heights. Personally, I'm so excited for a pop album. Production really gets me, and you know I'm a pop girly. But let's go into all of our thoughts and predictions around those track titles, because Taylor had some things to say in just these track titles alone. Starting with track 1, The Fate of Ophelia. So if you're watching the interview, you know that Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce had mentioned that this song is directly referring to Hamlet, which, if you know anything about Shakespeare or are familiar with the literary world or theater, so on and so forth, most people, as soon as they heard Ophelia, were thinking, is it Hamlet's Ophelia? Now, I'm going to put this out here by saying I'm not a Shakespeare fan. I have read Hamlet way back when in high school, probably 8 years ago. How old was it? Probably 8 years ago. I think I was 17 when I read it. I don't like Shakespeare the man, because he wasn't the greatest, and you can kind of see some of his issues and the issues of the time, particularly pertaining to women, show up in his female characters. Now, most of the information I have pulled back up to refresh my memory of Hamlet and Ophelia is from Wikipedia, so y'all can also do this deep dive yourself. But if you don't know anything about Ophelia, Ophelia is one of 2 female characters that we see portrayed in Shakespeare's Hamlet. If you are familiar with The Lion King, like Travis Kelce said, it is based off of Hamlet. So if you're like, retelling, that's probably a good one. If not, go read the story or watch some sort of stage or like movie adaptation of it. So essentially, Ophelia is kind of a girl who is seen to be or thought to be in love with Hamlet, the prince, the king, whatever you want. Originally, early on in the play, she is forbidden by her father to marry or court Hamlet. But after some sort of like circumstance where she has a conversation with Hamlet and he just like rushes in and like is just weird. It's just weird. You're going to see someone as a bit of a Shakespeare hater talking about Shakespeare, so I don't know. He's like, well, he must be in love with her to be this mad. So he sets up a situation where he is essentially eavesdropping on Hamlet and Ophelia's private conversation. This is referred to as the nunnery scene, very commonly. If you know anything about the last album, TTPD, the religious imagery, particularly Christian religious imagery, was a strong, thorough line throughout that one, particularly in songs like Guilty as Sin and But Daddy, I Love Him, which could give hints as to where we are picking up following the end of TTPD. But essentially, Hamlet realizes that he is being duped and that he is being listed upon, so therefore he kind of sends her out with the word saying, get thee to a nunnery. And of course, for some reason, Ophelia, not being the smart girly that she could be, instead of taking this as he's kind of red flags, he's like, oh, what a noble mind he is here. Girl, that made you think that? So essentially, the next time we see Ophelia, Hamlet kills her father. And pretty much from there on out, Ophelia is seen to go down a spiral. She is thought to go mad, and she is in fact seen saying, according to Wikipedia, she talks in riddles and rhymes and sings some mad and bawdy songs about death and a maiden losing her virginity. So obviously, Taylor Swift, she's kind of been like with songs like Mad Woman, you know, kind of being called crazy or like the crazy ex, and obviously singing the rhymes and the riddles. She speaks in riddles, she gives Easter eggs. This is obviously a strong connection there. And yeah, the last time we kind of see Ophelia appear in the play, she is talking with her brother about her father's death. And then after that, she is said to, and this could be a callback, that she was climbing a willow tree and the branch fell and she eventually fell into the water or the brook and drowned. Obviously, Willow being a song off of Evermore, which could be a tie-in, the fall of Ophelia, Willow. Could be because she's had 2 major heartbreaks that we know of in the last couple of years that led up to her getting with Travis. But also, a lot of people have pulled out the connections between her sort of being submerged in water on the cover and the image of Ophelia drowning in the brook or the lake. And essentially, the play ends out with Hamlet essentially arriving at her funeral, saying that he loved her more than it says 40,000 brothers could. 40,000 brothers could. So on and so forth. So obviously with the fall of Ophelia, I feel like, can I just say Renaissance pop? It's giving that. It feels like it's a great place to pick up where we ended with TTPD, because obviously there is some religious imagery that you can weave throughout this. But this song, I think, is going to be either a callback to the things we learned about the Maddie Healy relationship of like this very mad, tragic man sort of walking into her life, like kind of like leading her on and making her believe that she's so drastically in love, and her sort of overlooking these things, thinking like he's really smart when he's like really mad. And then ultimately leading to her downfall. Or it could be like a reminiscent on all of her past relationships and everything, of like all of these tragic men coming back in, and like her family, like her father and her brother, like warning her, being like, they ain't so good, and her just being like, and which ultimately leads to her downfall. I don't know, maybe at the end of the song she'll resurrect Ophelia, but this one for me definitely is either going to be a look back on her relationship with Maddie Healy, or probably a overview of where she has been, particularly with her relationships in the public eye, so on and so forth. Track 2. Elizabeth Taylor. Obviously, she is no stranger to calling back different icons from the past. On her last album, she closed it out with Clara Bow, and she made reference to Clara Bow, the classic original It Girl, the 1920s actress, and Stevie Nicks, which obviously we all know Stevie and Taylor have a strong relationship. Stevie obviously being the musical icon that she is and grew to fame, particularly in the 1970s with Fleetwood Mac. So in this one, Elizabeth Taylor. I'm going to give this a preference by saying my name is Taylor Elizabeth. My entire life, everyone in my family, or at least outside of my parents and such, always asked if I was named after Elizabeth Taylor. And while I never was, just these constant comparisons to her helped sort of shape some of the interests I took part in growing up. So my interest in ancient Egyptian, like in Egyptology, started with, my interest in Elizabeth Taylor because she starred famously in Cleopatra. And then obviously my interest in old Hollywood and stuff like that, and just what eventually became my career studying like fashion and cosmetic history started from the point with Elizabeth Taylor. So I have a very strong like connection to this actress and this character, and many people do. So obviously when it comes to the classic old Hollywood actresses, a lot that come to mind are Marilyn Monroe or Audrey Hepburn. But Elizabeth Taylor has been an actress that has essentially been in the public eye and been someone that a lot of artists and media have drawn inspiration from. So when you kind of think of like sort of the messy, the it girl, the person who's the relationships and dating life you really like to dive into, she is one of those. She's very famous for having been married 8 times to 7 different men. One of those that she was married to twice was Richard Burton, who she met with and starred alongside on the set of Cleopatra, probably one of her most famous works, the one that essentially set the 1960s off on a fashion and like cosmetic spiral, and she inspired a lot of the fashion trends that kind of helped set that off during that particular role. In fact, her beauty was very well known amongst the cosmetic and fashion industry, if you want like some of my knowledge there, and how like she just had these natural beauty, and obviously being the 1950s known for that classic red lip winged eyeliner, which Taylor Swift is known for. But on to the topic of Richard Burton. She essentially was, I can't remember if she was married or if he was married or if they were both married at the time, but they started an affair during the time of filming Cleopatra, and this became very well known. They got married, they got divorced, and they came back together and got married and got divorced again. She married multiple different people during her time, but I think so her last divorce, it says here on Wikipedia, if you want to look up there, was in 1996. So she essentially for the last 15 years of her life was single, but she's very famous for this Richard Burton affair, this like major Hollywood love story, and like people really digging into her personal life, like the actress that she was. While I do think a lot of the imagery is pulling from this 1920s artwork and art style, kind of a la Clara Bow, in The Life of a Showgirl, you can definitely see some inspiration from Elizabeth Taylor's looks, and I wouldn't be surprised if some of the artwork that we haven't seen actually is portrayal of a modern Elizabeth Taylor in that booklet. So it's no surprise that Taylor draws connections between her and Elizabeth Taylor. Just like me, her name is Taylor, so automatically, I think nowadays with a name like Taylor, I constantly get asked like Taylor Swift. I'm sure when she was younger, like Elizabeth Taylor, any other famous. So obviously there. But this isn't the first time she's made mention of Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor. In Ready For It on Reputation, which was the last album she worked with Max Martin and Shellback on, she says like Burton to this Taylor, referring to obviously Joe Alwyn, which now that we know from Midnights that there was likely some infidelity taking place during that time with Calvin Harris, Tom Hiddleston, Joe Alwyn, could make sense with an extramarital affair. But the callbacks to Elizabeth Taylor, particularly an actress that was so very famous for her beauty and her work, but that was so sort of overshadowed, and a lot of people like to focus in on her personal life and her relationships, especially when the majority of the last couple decades of her life she dedicated to philanthropy, is so like undeniable, where she calls back to Clara Bow. And that one's sort of like how women are constantly promised over and over again in this industry that you're going to be bigger and better. You've got something different to this woman before. I think in this one, she's going to sort of give hint to some of the other things like Blank Space and Lucky One talked about. So to me, this one is definitely going to be talking about how the media constantly reviews her relationships, and given the constant scrutiny of her relationship with Travis and the last couple of years, maybe, but also given that Burton to this Taylor was a reference likely to Joe Alwyn, I wouldn't be surprised if this song talks about her relationship with Joe, or it could just be an overall, again, look at her life throughout the years and her relationships as they are viewed and dug into by the media, because not only does the media do it, a lot of her Swiftie fans like to do it. I've done it. If you see in my breakdowns, I talk about the relationships that inspired the song, and in this one, we're talking about relationships that inspire songs too. So, who knows? All I know is that this is one of the tracks I'm claiming, and I'll talk about the next one when it comes up. Track 3, Opalite, is an interesting one because obviously everyone's pointed out the fact that Travis Kelce, her boyfriend, is born in October. The birthstone for October is obviously Opal. It's undeniable, the connections there. It could very likely be a love song. But if you're like me, who likes to do the weird stuff, and Taylor did mention she likes to talk about astrology, let's talk sort of the historical implications of opal. Now, there are various forms of opal that have existed. There is precious and common opal, and that's that. I'm not going to get into geology because I don't know that that is exactly what she's going to be talking about, and I highly doubt it. She likes to go into the mystical, the magical. So prior to the 1800s, opal actually had a very good connotation to it. It was believed to have mystical and magical powers. And again, listen, I worked in the library. If you want to look on Wikipedia, go and look on Wikipedia. So to state this, according to Wikipedia, in the Middle Ages, opal was considered a stone that could provide great luck, and it possessed all the virtues of each gemstone whose color was represented in the color spectrum of opal. So it provided these great mystical magical powers. It was also considered the gemstone of thieves in the medieval period because it was believed to be able to provide invisibility. So, I mean, it could be looking at Travis being able to kind of provide her that invisibility, the shield and stuff like from the media and so on and so forth. But the common connotation that we know today, and the one that I've grown up knowing, actually started in 1829 with Sir Walter Scott's publication of this novel book, Anne of Geierstein? I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but essentially in the book, there is this opal talisman that when his dropped or given or dropped on by holy water, it essentially is returned to a like basic common stone. And after this time, essentially what happened is that people began associating opal with bad luck or death and so on and so forth. So the sale of opals dropped dramatically, and to this day, which I've been told multiple times, opal is a representative of bad luck unless it is your birthstone. That is what I've been told multiple times. So there's two ways we could go with this. It could be a reference to Travis and stuff like that and the mystical magical implications, or it kind of could be looking at, like, given that holy water was the reason for the downfall, we could be following that mystical, like, religious imagery that she was giving in TTPD of, like, how everything is so beautiful until, like, these outside forces come back in. I don't know. I think it's likely going to be a reference to Travis Kelce, but I think she's going to play on the whole, if Opal is bad luck, then how are you bad luck for me situation. Who knows? It sounds like it's going to be pretty. It sounds like it could be a love song. But again, it probably could be drawing on that imagery of the Opal, the bad luck, the death. Like, you could be the death of me. But hey, like, if you aren't going to heaven, then I won't go to heaven too situation. So let's talk track 4. Father figure. My immediate thought was TikTok? Gay? Because if you aren't familiar, the song Father Figure by George Michael has trended on TikTok, and it's usually being, like, depicted over top of, like, people who kind of give, like, that daddy energy, particularly on my side of, like, very, like, sapphic daddy energy situation. I particularly remember Renee Rapp giving it. It kind of just is the way to sum it up. I don't know if I've said it, like, summed it up well, but that's how I'm getting it. But also, we can't deny that she obviously talked a lot about her father in the interview, sort of talking about his health problems right now, which I think the album was completed before these health problems came to light. But she's made mention of her father on multiple albums. If we go back to debut and Picture to Burn, My Daddy's Gonna Show You How Sorry You're Gonna Be, if I'm remembering that correctly, then obviously the song like But Daddy I Love Him, on Speak Now With Mine, You Made a Rebel of a Careless Man's Careful Daughter. So it's unlikely. I don't know if she's gonna be like making a super sexy, like, hey, you want a female father figure, go for it situation. If she does, because track 4s have been a collection of some pretty strong bangers, so she could be going for that vibe. But it could also be kind of looking up to her father figure and kind of seeing what that means to her now after these many years, because she has made mention of him in so many songs, the same way she's made mention of her mother. And obviously on Folklore and Evermore, she's really expanding upon her family history, and she's really going in depth. On Lover, she made a song about her mother and herself and her health issues with Soon You'll Get Better. On Folklore, it was reminiscent of her grandmother who had passed away, Marjorie. And then in Evermore, she is talking about the experience of her grandfather and how he can never talk about his experiences at war in the song Epiphany. So I'm curious to see if she takes a look at her relationship with her father in this song. So, and obviously I think for Father's Day, she did play the song Never Grow Up, which I don't think that's explicitly about her father. But I don't know that she's ever given a dedicated song to her father like she's given to her mother and some other family figures. So it could be about time. So, yeah. I would like to lock in Sexy Taylor song. I would like to. But it is very likely that it could just, in fact, be a song dedicated to her father. So, or it could be dedicated to any other of the male figures in her life. I don't know. But to everyone, tell me this. Are you locking in Sexy Taylor, or are you locking in, like, sad, reminiscent Taylor? Let me know. Track 5. The other track I'm claiming. Eldest Daughter. Eldest daughter. I am the eldest daughter. Like, I have one younger brother. I think the age difference between my brother and I are actually the exact same as Taylor and Austin. Obviously, she is older. She is the older sister. She has one younger brother. And the fact my brother actually shares the same shares the same birthday with Taylor Swift. So it's funny how that worked out. Obviously, eldest daughter. We kind of know the sort of tropes and sort of the stereotypes related around eldest daughters. Always the caretaker, always the one to take charge, kind of always like the brash, the bold, the one who kind of always takes on other people's problems. Can also be a bit of a people pleaser situation. The characteristics that go on with the one who kind of carries the weight of the world. If you're a fan of Disney, and while Luisa is not the eldest daughter, her song Surface Pressure, Lin-Manuel Miranda has said, is inspired by, like, watching his older sisters, like, carry the weight of the world. So if you want the imagery, a song or a visual that gives you that, kind of give you there. Track 5, historically, we all know is Taylor's like most personal, deepest song. And to me, this one, since it's very going to be an upbeat pop album, I think it's going to be reminiscent of track 5 on 1989, or maybe even on Reputation, because Delicate has that sort of upbeat production to it. All you had to do was stay on 1989. It has some very sad lyrics, but it is very much so upbeat production. Sort of also like hits different off of Midnights, but that is a deluxe track, not a track 5. So to me, this one feels like it's going to absolutely devastate me. I feel like it's very, I think to me, like Carrying the Weight of the World feels like that kind of. And then obviously when she ended out Midnights, like Pathological People Pleaser, I think those are going to be common themes that we discuss on this song. Whether it's going to be our low moment in terms of sad production, I don't know. A lot of people are predicting, I think this is probably correct, that it's probably going to be songs somewhere between 2.5 to 3.5 minutes, just because that kind of seems the way it's going to go, especially if it's going to give us our traditional pop vibes in the way that pop is going. So, I don't know. But I do fear Eldest Daughter will, in fact, end me. Ruin the Friendship. Now, I don't know if anyone else's TikTok feed has been inundated with Joe Jonas and Demi Lovato playing This Is Me and We Wouldn't Change a Thing. But I've also been hit up with all the reminders of Nick and Demi and how the song Ruin the Friendship on Demi's album is about that. So in my head, I'm like, sexy? Sexy? Because that song is all about looking at a friend and like wanting to take the next step. Like, let's ruin the friendship, like let's get in bed, like we can't fight this energy situation. So that could be the vibe. I'm immediately going to sexy because that's what the album artwork is giving us. Ruin the Friendship, I don't know if that's referring to Travis. It could be about Travis. It could be about a lot of other things going on. I'm trying to think if she's had any like public friendship breakups in the last year, and I'm not sure if that has taken place. Another one, it could be like looking back on like past friendships and stuff like that. Or thought that just popped in my head. I mean, we all, like, a lot of people are getting mad at her, like, Thank You, Amy, for, like, constantly rehashing the Reputation drama. But, like, how are we to tell someone how they choose to continue or thinking about their, like, lived experience? It could be about Kanye and Kim ruining that tenuous friendship that they had fostered after that Speak Now relationship up until the 1989 era drama that took place. It could be a whole multitude of things. I want to lock in Sexy Taylor once again because that's what I want. But if it's also sad, or it could be angry, it could be sexy or angry Taylor. Either one would be my preferred, but it could also be sad. It could be about a friendship breakup. I don't know. Does anyone know if there's any public friendship breakups to discuss in the realm of Taylor Swift in the last year? I don't know. I can't think of one. But who knows? Actually Romantic. Is this going to be a New Romantics Part 2 situation? So to me, Actually Romantic, there's two different meanings that I can think of her sort of looking on her past relationships, particularly after getting out of this really long-term relationship where she was with someone for so long, and then this sort of long-term situation back and forth, will they, won't we, situation that we discussed on the Tortured Poets department, kind of looking back on that being in her newest relationship and kind of realizing that some of the things that happened and that she thought were romantic in the previous relationships actually weren't romantic, and sort of discussing like, actually the things that my new partner are doing are actually romantic. Like, these are the things that I should be expecting versus this is what I got situation. Or she is kind of like pondering, or this, like, I think they're both that, but there's one of like actually recognizing the issues versus this one is like in the process of her coming to terms of like, this is actually romantic. Like, can I actually have romance? It's either going to be like the aftermath of having realized that these are actually romantic things, or in the process of doing that. I think that's the two sides of the coin that we're going to get. Or maybe, possibly, it could be about romanticizing different things in life. Like, what is actually romantic? Like, outside of like an actual romantic relationship, kind of looking at life, because she says she likes to romanticize life. There's that. We know in the song New Romantic, she's drawing from this particular like art style and movement, I think from the late 1800s or sometime in the 1800s. Sort of like talking about and glamorizing the whole like back and forth, getting stranded, like sort of situation vibe of a millennial dating. And this could be her revisiting the concept of like looking back on it now that I'm in my mid-30s in a healthy, happy relationship. Like, this is what romance actually is. Like, I don't need to romanticize all that other junk again. So, I don't know. Track 7 is a bit of a wishy-washy for me. I don't know where she could be going. The historical precedent isn't necessarily like set like some of these other track numbers are, but we'll see. Wishlist, track 8. The song with the dollar signs in the middle. She made point out that there were $2 signs in there. I've heard a lot of speculation that this is going to be about her buying back her masters, which, to be fair, could be, because since she's putting money into it and the amount of money it cost her to buy back her masters and the amount of money she, did, I think wishlist, because in theory, what a wish list is are the things that you wish you could have, the things you want out of life, the things you want out of something particular. So for me, it could be, if we're looking at a master situation, looking at the things that she needs in order to be able to purchase back her masters, like the criteria that needs to be met for her to purchase it outright. Obviously, me apparently having the dirty mind that I have and having listened to Dandelion by Ariana Grande this year, it could be also a wish list in a very sexy sense of like the wish list I want out of a person situation, but the dollar signs are giving me money. I also think that this could be, given the thought that we're looking at the media in itself, sort of like looking at like the wish list for the things that she wanted out of fame and fortune. Like, these are the things that I wanted. Like, these are the things that I wanted out of life. Like, I thought I wanted this, like, this monetary, like, this fame and this fortune, but maybe not. Who knows? That one sounds like it's going to be a banger. Track 8, having looked at the situation with track 8 has not historically been my favorite track, so I don't know. Could roll up, because I think Florida was track 8 last time, and she demolished some of the track 8 situation. Let's move into the track 9, the one that I think is going to have everyone so intrigued. So track 9, every Swiftie knows when you see track 9, you immediately zoom in on it and be like, what's coming? What's coming? Because track 9 has given us such bangers as Should Have Said No, Enchanted, Getaway Car, like songs that have become so synonymous with fan favorites in the Swiftie fandom that track 9 is immediately zoomed in on. And this one couldn't be the more vague title. Would. Again, dirty minds go immediately to like wood in a sexual sense. I don't know if I have to explain that on the internet. You can Google that. I mean, I don't know. There's no precedent for theming around track 9, but wood could be sexual. Also, wood, it could be talking about like the aging process of wood and sort of like that, and like how like over time wood, it can be battered and stuff like that, and if it's treated properly, it can like withstand and age beautifully over time, sort of like a redwood or like a piece of like stand-up furniture or like a wooden house. Or if it's treated improperly, like termites can eventually crawl in and tear it apart, or it can degrade, or like from like damage or mold and stuff like that, and it can easily fall apart. So it could be talking about like, that. Wood could also refer to woods in a forest, like getting lost in the wood. If we're starting out with the Faithophilia, and Elizabeth Taylor, it is giving like classics, it's giving Renaissance, it's giving like ethereal. But, like, the cover art is not necessarily, like, the titles are giving ethereal, like, the first half. But, like, the further we go on, it's like, oh, a little modern. So this could be an example of where Taylor likes to blend modern references with old-timey lyrics and, like, imagery and stuff like that. I could see that. This one, most vague. In my head, I'm going to lock this one on as being, like, super pop. Like, to me, when you look at track 9s, they're, like, up there with like upbeat and so on and so forth. I don't know. This one is the one that I'm most interested in, curious, the one that I have the least understanding about what we could possibly get from it. So do leave your thoughts, comments, and concerns about this one. It could be sexual. It could be like a very ethereal, like treat me correctly and I will age, like, unlike we will age beautifully and so on and so forth, but treat me poorly and we will age kind of like spilled milk or like rotten wood situation like that. So we'll see. Well, number 10, she basically just said, I'm going to call him out. Canceled. Obviously, we know what the modern connotation for a cancel nowadays. It is to actively like unfollow, unstan, like immediately like go out of your way to no longer promote or like engage with someone's career, like trying to take them out of like trying to end someone's platform for the so on and so forth, which is the whole difference between accountability culture and cancel culture and like how to like holding people accountable and knowing when to like no longer promote and support someone who has actively done something bad, and then going all the way to cancel someone for like minute or small mistakes and so on and so forth. Which Taylor Swift has had a slew of lots of things that have been thrown at her over the years. And while some of them are warranted critiques, some of them aren't, and then it's just everywhere in between, it's the question of she's probably going to address like the media scrutiny around her relationships, her life, her choices, and everything. I imagine it's pretty easy to tell what this one is going to essentially talk about the media, and it's got an exclamation point at the end. So I imagine the word canceled will in fact be yelled in the background somewhere, some point. I don't think it's hard to tell about that. Obviously, there's so many different situations from her life where she could discuss this. I think prominently, if this one is going to give us Reputation vibes, we could talk about the Taylor Swift is Over party that trended during the 1989 era through the whole Kim and Kanye situation. And we know up until this point that Reputation was the last album that she had been working on re-recording. But who knows? It could also address anything regarding Maddie Healy situation, general politics, so on and so forth. Heck, it could be talking about our current political state and the current person in power in the U.S. who... It's so interesting being a Swiftie and also living in the U.S. right now, because it's just like highs and lows, disassociation at a high. But yeah, is there much to guess here? So I'm locking in this is going to be angry Taylor or sassy Taylor. You never know. It could be a vigilante shit vibe. I mean, some of the artwork is giving that. Honey. This one is another title that is very vague, and I don't think a lot of Swifties, from what I've seen, have thoughts as to where it could be going. So to me, Honey, well, I was usually thrown back to the Jessica Alba movie Honey, which I haven't technically seen, but I've like heard so much about dance and stuff like that, and it's kind of very sexy. We know that Taylor and Jessica Alba have worked together before and are friends, so it could be a reference to that. She has made a lot of pop culture references in her songs, like on Midnights, where she said like I'm all for you like Janet, giving a call back to Janet Jackson's song. So it could be like that. But she also says in Karma, like sweet like honey situation. It could be a reference to that, like it's sweet like honey, like this love is sweet like honey. So it could be a callback to Karma. I think this one to me, it could be sweet like honey, or like he's my honey, like so on and so forth. I mean, we could also think of like Winnie the Pooh and Honey. There's so many possible things you could draw from this. I'm locking in that it's going to be a reference kind of like Karma, where it's sweet like honey, or like Karma's sweet like honey. It could be a callback to like, this is me reaping my rewards of karma. Or it could be like my honey, like my babe, my boo, my baby, all that Travis Kelce situation, and sort of talking about him. I think this one is going to be very sweet, unless she wants to do a 180 and be like, psych, nothing is sweet like honey. But that one makes the most sense. So it's either going to be a follow-up to Karma, since Karma was the last song that she ended the Eras Tour with and then walked out with, or it's going to be talking about her love. Then The Life of a Showgirl, the title track, this song that essentially encapsulates what the album is about. She has said that this album is going to focus in what life is like off stage, the behind the scenes. This is a track featuring Sabrina Carpenter, who has heavily crafted the image of the showgirl over the last few years, particularly if you look at music videos like Because I Liked a Boy. That one is very much so giving showgirl and all that. And then if you see like her stage performances for the Short and Sweet tour, and eventually going into the Man's Best Friend tour, she is kind of like, her entire stage is designed to be like a movie set, like you're watching television, and so on and so forth. And also there's been a lot of callbacks to Sabrina Carpenter giving the images of Bridget Bardot and Marilyn Monroe, whereas you kind of look at Taylor Swift and she's given the image of like Stevie Nicks, kind of like some opposite sides of like the bombshell, the sex pot, the femme fatale, whereas you have the other one of like the singer-songwriter, the witchy, like the more like free-spirited, like down-to-earth situation. Neither is bad, neither is good situation, and them kind of coming together and discussing like what is life of a showgirl, like what does it mean to be on the end of putting on a show. To me, this is going to be the most similar lyrically and conceptually to I Can Do It With a Broken Heart, of like it's going to be talking about like essentially I think it's going to go back and forth of like I'm on stage and like I'm feeling this, but you keep putting on the show because like no matter what, you constantly like the life of a showgirl is being able to go on stage and be able to put on this massive performance and put on this image for the show, for the world, for everyone to see, that is the opposite or hides what is actually going on in your personal life. Because it's like it's not as glamorous as it seems, or like people look at it as glamorous. And then like we talked about in Taylor Swift's like vinyl, not vinyl, is it vinyl variants or CD variants? I'm not sure. But the deluxe variants, oh, the deluxe CDs, so they're CDs. To me, it's frightening, it's rapturous, it's beautiful. Those are lyrics from the life of a showgirl. I mean, Sweat and Vanilla Perfume, the OG edition title, could be from that, but if those three lyrics aren't from it, I would be so completely shocked. Because to me, that is exactly encapsulating what life of a showgirl is. It's frightening, like the amount of media attention and the lack of privacy that you have and like the weight that you carry, it's frightening. It's rapturous. It captures your attention. Like the image of a showgirl, essentially, like it is so addictive and like you constantly want to be drawn in and look at it. And then it's beautiful because the images that you see of like life is beautiful, of like all these different things that you get. It's kind of giving that duality of like, it's not all fun and games and glamour and beauty all the time, but also at the same time, there are also these other amazing things. And that's where we kind of go back into like opening with the image that she has on the front of it being like, this is what it looks like after, versus the back scene of like, and you do it all again. Because no matter what's happening in your life, no matter how heartbroken you are, how physically damaged or down you are, and so on and so forth, like you can be down bad, but you still have to be the bad bitch situation. And that's sort of what I think it's going to be. I have seen people point out that they think this one is going to have some country twang to it, because Sabrina has in recent years, especially on Short and Sweet, and with recently from what we've heard from Manchild, play around with this pluck and this twang and so on and so forth. I think I'm curious to see what her sound is fully like on Man's Best Friend in a couple weeks, and that may give me a hint as to what the collaboration may sound like. I don't know. I don't think Taylor is gonna make a sound that is supposed to sound like Sabrina Carpenter. I am very curious to see how their voices sound together on a record, because all we know so far of them singing together is the two different performances we got of them on the Eras tour, which came with mixed reviews on how they sound together. I withhold judgment until I see what the final record looks like and sounds like. It is interesting to me that we probably won't get Jack Antonoff on this record, because I think that Jack Antonoff would have been a great collaborator with them too, especially given the success he's had with Taylor and Sabrina on their last couple albums. But who knows? But those are all of my thoughts, comments, concerns, opinions of what we might be getting on these potential track lists. Leave down below your tracks that you're claiming. Mine right now are track 2 and 5. Elizabeth Taylor and Eldest Daughter. They're just so entwined with my lore as titles that I don't see how I couldn't claim them. What's your favorite artwork or picture that we've gotten so far, and what are your thoughts, comments, and predictions regarding tracks, titles, and just general vibes about this? And if you don't know, because I haven't said it, the track or the album is coming out October 3rd, and I guess she said what she said when it came to Mean Girls. We had a Mean Girls reference on Reputation, and then she gave us October 3rd. And if you don't know what I'm referring to, I will end this video out with the meme of Mean Girls, and I will see y'all in the next one.